Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis were members of the time. They got fired due to one of the few times in Atlanta that it ever snowed. They got snowed in, and they missed the show, and the show had to go on. And so Prince was so livid, because he had to play bass behind the curtains, right? Consequently, he fired them. One of the best things that happened to them, because they went on to Flight Time Productions with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis and all the wonderful hits that they've written over the years, and they were my friends. They are my friends. After I got fired from Prince, I was determined to get a deal now. Alexander O'Neal is going to get a record deal. My friends were in a position, they came home, and I was doing a local club downtown Minneapolis, and Jim and Terry said, look, man, we just started our producing thing that just did the SOS band. So they said, when we get our feet planted firmly on the ground in the industry, then we're going to come back and we're going to get you a record deal.
This isn't like in marble. This is just me, once again, outside looking in, because I didn't grow up with those guys in Minneapolis. But me and Prince got to be really close, get to be best friends. And I knew that there was a lot of animosity between Prince and Terry Lewis and Jimmy Jam. And it had to do with childhood stuff, where people bullied people and other folks didn't know that dude was going to grow up to be that Prince, and all that kind of thing.
But Morris was definitely not into it. Morris, disappeared after those guys got fired, and we couldn't find him for a long time because he didn't want to be a part of it anymore.
Morris was pretty subdued about it. He was pretty upset, too, so he wasn't participating in that part of it. He was just doing what he had to do.
It's funny because as I was driving here, just on Fountain, at Cherokee and Fountain is Sunset Sound, where it all began. He would come and pick me up the street, and we'd come down here and record. And it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then he got the purple motorcycle, and it was like back and forth to the studio, which is just down the street from here. So we'd go pick him up at the airport in Lisa's car, and we'd bring him to our house. And it was just Wendy, Lisa, myself, and Prince. And we'd be in our little 2-bedroom house with 2 cats that would jump on him in the middle of the night on the couch. And, Wendy, Lisa, can you get the cats? But he started coming out a lot.
I never had met him or anything. I just called him up. He was in L.A., and I said, well, I'm here, and what are you doing? And he said, well, I'll try to come over, and we didn't even think he would.
He lives in Minneapolis, so he's not going to be here. We got a number. I call. He answers. Hello, Prince. This is Stevie Nicks. Stevie Nicks, this is Prince. Are you here in town? And he said, yes, I am. I have written a song to one of your songs, Little Red Corvette. And I said, I'm at Sunset Sound. So he said, okay. And he walks in, and he is dressed to the nines. And he's totally cool. And he says, I love it. And so he plays on it. And he also plays the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da part. And I'm just going this is not happening.
And he did, and he came. I said, well, I'd like it if you came. And he said, yes, ma'am. And he showed up not long later and just put this incredible, kind of amazing, awesome part on that we just went, it was amazing.
I know I have to start the movie or Prince is going to go crazy. And when his creative juices were going, he had to start. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm going to cut right to the chase. I go to Albert, Arts Deli, I think. Dupar's, excuse me. Knowing Prince, if he starts driving it, you have to do pretty much. Prince just wanted to start. If we're going to make a major motion picture, you got to get a major studio, and he wants his name above the title. And you can't get some drug dealer to finance it.
Well, I heard that. Because some of the guys in the band were talking about it. Jill Jones was talking about it. I remember Vanity and Susan Moonsey telling me, he's writing in this notebook these ideas. He thinks he's going to make a movie. And everybody kind of the sense I got was that nobody really believed it, but everybody was too afraid of him to express it. So everybody acted yeah, we're going to make a movie. But, they didn't believe it.
After all, there was unknown everybody. And my last try is for Jamie Foley. I screened this movie, Reckless. I'm all by myself in the screening room. The movie ends, and this kid comes down the aisle and says, what did you think? And I said, it was okay. I liked the editing. And he says, I did that. That was Albert. And I tell him my story. So I offer him the movie and $75,000. And he passed. I said, you haven't got a pot to piss in, excuse my French. How could you pass?
I passed, but it wasn't at the restaurant. I had passed the day before. It's because I read it and I didn't think it was large enough. It was a small film. I said to him, I'm going to pass. He immediately got very angry, used a lot of bad language. He said, everybody in town is passing, and now you're on a D list. You don't exist. You're just an editor. I said, I went to film school. I know nothing, but you're in the music business and you know less than I do.
No, it was more like Prince because, back then we hung out every day. And so, we cut music, and if we weren't cutting music, we'd go out, party a little bit, then we'd come back and hear some music, inspire us, we'd come back at night and cut. And he was just like, we're going to do a movie. He's like, I'm writing this movie. And I said, okay. And then
we had come off the road after the tour supporting the 1999 album. The last couple of tours, I had been in the break between, tour, the band is off, Prince goes in the studio. But during that break, I had put my own band together. I was prepping for my exit. I was doing showcases and recording demos and working toward a solo deal. So I was in LA in label meetings, and I get a call from Prince. Yes, I need you to come home right away. So went back to Minneapolis, went out to the house, spent a day hanging with him. And what was on his mind was, we're about to film, do this record, and, we're going to tour for 2 years once the record is out. Between doing the film, doing the record, and the road, I need you to either commit for 3 more years or split and go do your solo thing. And it really wasn't so much a question. I wasn't doing anyone good as a bandmate. I said, yeah, I'll opt out.
I used to practice playing guitar for, 4 or 5, sometimes 6 hours a day when I was 14, 15, 16 years old. Pinned all my hopes on this thing. When you're, 15 years old and looking for something to hang your hat on, it seems so real. And I thought that's the key. That's the key to being happy in life. It's like, well, I'm a guitar player. It was like, yeah, now I'm somebody. I'm getting somebody. I have a tangible proof that all these years that I've been spending doing this are worthwhile, and I am worthwhile. The act was increasingly centered around sexual things and blatantly sexual things, and oftentimes things that were just patently designed to shock people and nothing more.
I've always been the type of person that danced to the beat of my own drum, so I don't let other people define what it is that makes me. When you're writing, you don't think of those things. You just try to be the instrument rather than an editor. So I don't really respond to what society says. So, we don't use words like wholesome or, bad or good, things like that. You know what I mean?
I mean, on the one hand, it's fun, but there's the reality of these kids and what we're saying and what we're doing. And all of a sudden, it's like we were rock stars. What I'd always wanted to be, I was, But at the same time, there was this incredible turmoil because it was not making me happy. And the more it didn't make me happy, the more I was thinking, why isn't this making me happy?
During this time of intense questioning, Dez found himself watching a television program off stage.
Sometimes on the road, myself and a couple of the other guys in the band would on those long days off where you don't have anything to do, we'd just watch cable TV, and many, many times we'd watch the 700 Club.
And it was through the 700 Club, Dez Dickerson, then lead guitarist for one of the hottest pop bands going, began to learn about a happiness he once thought could only be found in music.
When you're in that turmoil, peace is something you want, but you have no frame of reference. You have no idea what peace is, much less how you're going to get it. So it was kind of a bridge for me, I think. It helped to kind of challenge my thinking and get me to a point where God could have an impact on me.
Then, after months of searching, Dez finally prayed to receive Jesus Christ as his Savior.
It was a very simple thing. I just remember, verbally, just asking Jesus to come into my life and asking God to have his way. And just that I was tired of being at odds.
While staying with the band another 2 years, Dez eventually left to pursue his solo career.
I was thrilled to be going back to doing what I did in Whalebone and being the guy in the middle of the stage, singing the songs and talking to the audience. And that was where I felt most comfortable. And we got to do it in some great venues at that point in time, kind of the brand value that had been built up as the guy in the Kamikaze Headband. We were able to kind of cash in on some of that. Toured with Billy Idol, the Rebel Yell tour, which was probably the most enjoyable tour that out of all of them that I've ever done. I probably enjoyed that one the most.
It was really exciting. Wendy and Lisa and I lived so close to Sunset Sound that as he was recording the record, he was back and forth to our house. There were times where he'd be in the studio all night long and he would call Wendy and Lisa and say, come in. In fact, just after Let's Go Crazy was recorded, I remember getting a cassette of it and taking it with me and driving home and listening to it and thinking, oh my God, it's so huge. It's huge. Like, you never hear this kind of big sound. Or at least I haven't heard this in a long time. I don't know what the reference would have been even at that moment in time. And then I remember a friend of mine had been at the house, and I said, you have to hear this. You have to come in the car. You have to hear what they're doing. You have to hear this thing. And played him Let's Go Crazy, and he was blown away, like, what is going on in the studio there? What are they recording? He had just done Let's Go Crazy, and then after he finished, because he would go in and cut, mix, nothing would stop. He would just go in, record, and then it would be mixed. There was no stopping, like, okay, we're just going to record a bunch of these tracks and then later and mix. He wouldn't stop. It was until it was done. Each song had to be completed. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He would be up. Just never stop. Until he felt it was time to stop. But he could go 3 days and crash a day and then start up again. And if that meant he was starting up at 8 o'clock at night to do another 24-hour run, that's when it would start. Because if he'd gone home that 8 o'clock that morning and slept till 4 in the afternoon, meet me at the studio at 7, then it would be
24 hours.
Yes, constant. There were many walking out of the studio at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. You weren't there to see him ever sing. You were out. Everyone had to be out. He would record his own vocals. So nobody was in the studio when he would do that.
What about when
you
he
could
played?
hear it. Like when he was doing the beautiful ones, and we were in the lounge, and you could hear him screaming, because he would do it behind the board. He'd always do his vocals sitting at the board. And so you would just hear this, extraordinary screaming and, again and again and again and again. And then he'd come out at 5 in the morning and everybody would be sleeping on the couch like, what? It's done. He'd get the Linn drum out. He'd start putting down a pattern. Then he'd take the bass. He'd start playing bass. Then he'd put a guitar on it. Then he'd take the keyboards out. And he'd start putting keyboard lines on it. And the next thing you know, there was the pad out and he was writing lyrics. And then he'd go in and, okay, everybody out for a minute. And it would happen like that. What I saw mostly is that he always had a drum pattern first. Always the drum pattern. And then a bass line. And then the guitar. And then he'd layer keyboards and whatever else. And then all the vocals.
Vanity wanted her career, but why couldn't she have it all?